Hello, welcome to part 8 of this beginner's tutorial series. In the last one we made the beginning, we're getting quite far now with our Edwardian Georgian house. Let me just flip back to Blender, and it's looking like this at the minute, which is pretty cool. And I was going to put some vertical beams, but I don't think that's too necessary at the moment. I think what we'll do with this one is we'll just add a bit of texture. But to add a bit of texture, there's a couple of details we'll touch on. I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but just enough to get this job done. But we want to texture this building here. So to see the texture, we'll go over to render view. And I'm going to, in my render settings, I'm just going to put the denoise on, because it's nice. And what's it up to? 1024, fine. So to do this, we need to look at the shader window. And again, if you've got any separate ones, you just need to go into this menu and go to shader editor. But if it's set up like mine, I've got my shader editor down here. But for the purpose of this, I'm actually going to make that window smaller, bigger, I mean. So texturing and adding texturing to objects in Blender is, though it may not look it, really simple. What this is using at the moment is the main shader. These are called shaders, and this is the main one that comes as a default with any time you press the material. So in fact, I should do that. So if you click on your object and you've got nothing, you've just got this new button, click that, out comes a Principled BSDF. So I'll talk you through a few of the basic controls, because you can build a lot of textures in Blender and have a lot of fun in the shader editor, which I do. So at the moment, as you can see, the base color, it's white, but we can have any base color, pink if we want, and just like orange. And these aren't changing because obviously these are separate objects. So I'm only changing the material on this one. So for now, we'll just have that base color. Subsurface, not important. Metallic, it is important if you need subsurface, but that's for organic things, not for these things. So metallic just makes it metal building if you want. The specular and roughness are quite important, because you can have, if I take the roughness right down to 0, it's, if I get something up to show that it's reflective, I'm just going to add a cube and bring it out so we can see it. So you see it's super reflective. If I bring the specular up a bit more, if I went to metallic, you'd see the reflection even better. It's just there is no roughness. This is like a mirror because I've turned the roughness right down. If you turn the roughness right up, there's just no reflection at all. It doesn't matter. Specular is the edges, like the very, very sharp highlights, would be the specular, which you'll see more on it. We'll see it later. But we don't need a metallic. We'll have a bit of specular. Everything really has got a bit of specular, and everything has some amount of roughness. So it's going to be brick, so we don't want it shiny. So 0.8 will do. So the rest of it, again, for our purposes, it's not important. All we need is to get something to cover this and give it a bit of texture. So that's what we've done. We'll sort the windows out later, but we just want to look at this. Now, in the shader editor, in the same way you can by pressing Shift A in the viewport, you get a menu. Same thing over in the shader editor. Shift A, and you move around the shader editor with a click of the middle mouse button. So Shift A brings up all of these. These are all things that you can add to compile your shaders. For what we're going to do, we're going to go straight into here, texture, and brick texture. And we're going to drop that there. We've now got a brick texture node. Don't worry about any of this yet. And if we plug this in, you see all of these have an input. a color matching input. So this color clearly goes into this base color. There'd be no point putting that into a purple one. So the colors match. So these are saying you can put stuff in here. So at the moment, our Principled BSDF just has a base color, nothing else. But if we plug the brick node into here, it changes it and is now using these controls. So these are the colors. You've got the mortar size, the width, all of these types of things. And the shader, the Principled BSDF, is dealing with just the roughness, metallic, all that. All the color is coming from here. And this won't take long, I can assure you. But obviously that does not look like a brick texture. So the reason this is looking weird, like a carnival, is because of what's called the mapping. And you can think of the mapping as if you had a big picture, a big painting, and you wanted to put it over this box, you'd just stretch it, wouldn't you? You'd put the front of it would be here, then you'd fold it, and down the side would be the side of it, and down here. And it would all look seamless and nice. But here, it's clearly not doing that. It's just picking random things to do. And that's because we haven't told it how to map. And this is just very quick. And they're called the UVs. So if you go into this, one of your windows, change this to UV editor. Right. And if you've got this selected, if you press tab and then press A to select all of them, this is displaying how this is mapped out. So if you imagine this box is the picture, and then these bits will display that specific part of the picture that it's sitting above. But clearly that's not working for this. But it doesn't matter if we do anything with the UVs, it's not going to change. And again, these are called the UVs. They're not going to change anything there because we're not telling the brick texture how we would like it to map. So to do that, and this is just almost, yeah, it's not, we have to do this. This is important to get basic texturing knowledge. So Shift A, and then under Input, you've got Texture Coordinate. And this will tell it which UVs, which mapping to use. You've got generated. Each one will do something different. So if we select generated and you just click and drag into there, it's already using generated. Everything that comes out is just automatically default using generated. If I change it to UV, it now represents what we saw here. This is how it's mapping. If you change it to object, it's who knows. Who knows what's going on there. But the one we want is UV. Because if you tap and press A and select all these faces, this is what we're seeing. And clearly it's not working. So we need to change how that is being UV mapped. So simply, once all this is selected, and if this doesn't go orange as well, there's this button here, UV Sync Selection. So now it will, if I select here, it will select there. So that button there. So if you simply press U, which is the unwrap menu, and you've got a bunch of choices. There are a few. Smart UV, sometimes, Cube, loads, follow active quads occasionally, and just simply unwrap. But for this, it's a 3D object. It was a cube. So if we click cube projection, straight away, we have something that looks a little bit better. And again, because we did it all from one object, all the bricks match. They're all seamless. If we had that way we did it in the first one, where we just added more cubes, we wouldn't have this seamless texture. So that does the texture, or the mapping. And again, it sounds crazy, but it's important to understand. We don't need to go too much into detail, and believe me, that wasn't a lot of detail. But now, before we finish, we'll just go to the brick texture, because now we can edit how these bricks look in here. So I'm going to give it that color and that color. There we go. And I'm going to scale. If I click and press Shift and hold it, I'm doing it. And if I don't hold Shift, it goes up crazy. But if I hold Shift, so we want it to look a bit more bricky. That'll do. And that's a good start. That's a good start to our texture. We have something. As I say, we'll deal with the windows and the roof and the beams and everything next time. But that's your first look at a very simple setup for a texture. As I say, you can do a ton in the shader editor. I made a bunch of builders called the Infinite Builders. They are very complex and they require a lot of shaders, but there is a ton you can do. Anyway, we'll leave it there for now, and we'll see you in the next one when we're going to touch this up a bit. All right, bye.